Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ. So till now, what all things we have covered? We started off with socio-religious reform movements, and I told you there are two types, reformist and revivalist, right? And then we have discussed about Brahmo Samaj as reformist movement, and from Muslim side, Aligarh movement we have covered. And we started off with revivalist movement, and we have discussed about Wahhabi movement from Muslim side. And in this video we need to cover the Arya Samaj movement, okay? And then we will also talk about Swami Vivekananda. So in between we have covered other movements like Young Bengal movement, Theosophical Society, Satyashodhak Samaj, Prarthana Samaj, etc. Okay, so let me start off with Arya Samaj now. So basically I want to discuss more about Swami Dayanand Saraswati, okay? And as part of the discussion we will discuss about Arya Samaj, okay? So Swami Dayanand Saraswati, okay? Swami Dayanand Saraswati. Original name was Mool Shankar Tiwari, okay? Mool Shankar Tiwari. And he is the person who started Arya Samaj movement, okay? So he started Arya Samaj movement. He is originally from Gujarat, plays in Jankara, okay? So he was originally from Gujarat. He was born in 1824. Now, in 1875, he started Arya Samaj in Bombay, okay? In 1877, he shifted the headquarters of Arya Samaj to Lahore. So Arya Samaj was started in Bombay in 1875. 1877, headquarters of Arya Samaj was shifted to Lahore. Now, why it is called as a revivalist movement? Basically, his slogan itself is "Go back to Vedas." Okay, so his slogan was "Go back to Vedas." Go back to Vedas, and that's the reason why we will come to know about the ideologies and operations and strategies and everything. But this is a slogan, and we call this as revivalist movement, okay? So one of the most important revivalist movement is Arya Samaj movement, go back to Vedas. So this is a parallel movement to Wahhabi movement. Wahhabi movement is also having the same ideology, go back to Islamic traditions, okay? Like in 7th century Arab, when Islam was in its pure form. Similarly, here go back to Vedas. So he basically wanted to revive Hindu society as in the case of Vedic period, okay? That means 1500 to 600 BC, okay? So he want to revive Hindu society like this period, okay? Like when we discussed about Wahhabi movement, they want to revive Islamic tradition like in the case of 7th century Arab, because in 7th century Arab, Islam was in its pure form. Here, 1500 to 600 BC, Hinduism was in its pure form. Now, he only approved Vedas, Rigveda, Samaveda, Yajurveda and Atharva Veda, okay, and Upanishads. So he only approved Vedas and Upanishads, and he rejected all other Hindu literatures like Puranas, okay? He rejected everything else except Vedas and Upanishads. Now, unlike Rajaram Mohan Roy, he was not ready to accept other culture, okay? He was not ready to accept others' culture like Christianity, Islam or anything. So when we discussed about Rajaram Mohan Roy, I told you he was considered as a reformist because he was ready to accept other culture. At the same time, he was very proud in his own culture. So whatever is good from other culture, he was ready to accept it. Like Christianity, if you see, he was ready to accept humanity. And from Islam, equality. And from Hinduism, spirituality. Okay, these are the good elements that he was ready to accept from other religion. So here Swami Dayanand Saraswati rejected others and other culture. Basically, for him, his idea is true knowledge and solution for all the problems is already there in Vedas and Upanishads, okay? So it was actually very orthodox and revivalist movement. Orthodox and revivalist movement among Hindus, okay? Now, the other important points which I need to discuss is, he rejected certain practices among Hinduism like idol worship, okay? So idol worship not promoted, it's actually rejected. See, the point is, you may face confusion when it comes to this point, because you're talking about Hindu revivalist movement, and the moment you see that, consider the following with respect to Arya Samaj. Which among the following is true? Okay, so rejected idol worship. Okay, it is possible when it comes to Brahma Samaj, because that was a modern movement or reform movement. Here, you may not think that they rejected idol worship, and the fact is they rejected idol worship. So in that way, both Brahmo Samaj and Arya Samaj have certain similarity, right? This is a similarity. So both rejected idol worship, and you cannot see any idols in Arya Samaj temples, which is across India. So they also advocated belief in one God and formless God. Okay, one God and formless God. So this is a very important point. You should not have any confusion. So Arya Samaj, although they are revivalist, although they are orthodox, still they promoted one God and formless God concept, and they rejected idol worship, very much like Brahmo Samaj. These are the two key points when we discussed about Brahmo Samaj. You can see there also. They set up various Arya Samaj mandirs across India. Nowhere you can see any idols or idol worship. Okay, the other point is they criticized rituals of Hindu society. Okay, so criticized rituals of Hindu society, not just one, many rituals they criticized. Okay, then next point you can write is they tried to simplify Hindu religion and its practices. Simplify religious practices. Okay, so they tried to simplify religious practices like simple marriage in temples, and they in fact promoted intercaste marriage. See, these are 2 points which you may face a lot of confusion. One is they stopped or they rejected idol worship. Why confusion? Because this is actually a part of reformist movement. Then they promoted one God and formless God. That is also part of reformist movement, but it is also practiced by Arya Samajis, or it was also promoted by Swami Dayanand Saraswathi also. Okay, now this is the most important point. They promoted intercaste marriage. Intercaste marriage. And then why it is called as revivalist movement? We'll come to that. Okay, see, when we discussed about Wahhabi movement, there also I told you 2 parts, right? One is reform in Islamic tradition. Second is establishing Islamic rule. And I told you the second was the most problematic one. The first one, nobody cared for that. Okay, you reform your religion, who cared for that? Same is the case here also. There are a lot of good things. There are a lot of reforms, like promoting intercaste marriage was one of the great thing, right, at that time especially. But there are certain problems. We'll come to that problem, which is related to, you know, Shuddhi movement, cow protection movement, etc. That created a lot of troubles. Okay, we'll come to that. So they promoted intercaste marriage. So you should not have any confusion if you get multiple choice question as statements like this. Idol worship they rejected. They promoted single God and formless God, and they promoted intercaste marriage. Okay, and they promoted simple religious practices. So these are actually part of reforms. So when I say it is a revivalist movement, you should not have any confusion. So these are the good sides of Arya Samaj movement. Okay, now why they promote intercaste marriage? That is something different, because if you remember, in 1772 Universal Marriage Act was passed by Lord Northbrook. If you remember, we have discussed this, right? So under Universal Marriage Act, even the state is also promoting intercaste marriage, and in case of intercaste marriage, state started giving protection to those married couples, right? So on one side, state promoting intercaste marriage, at the same time they also promoting intercaste marriage. The point is, look, we know what to do from our side. Everything is there in Vedas and Upanishads. You don't want to bring reforms. We know how to reform our society. That's the idea of Arya Samaj or Dayanand Saraswati. So that's why he promoted intercaste marriage. On one side, state is promoting, and on the other side, they are also promoting. Now there is no other way. Actually, you cannot oppose also. If you oppose, you will be in jail. Okay, so that may also be one reason, but whatever it is, we'll write it in a positive way. So these are the good things. Now let's look at some controversies related to Arya Samaj movement. Okay, so the first and the most important is cow protection movement. Now this is going to create issue at any point of time in history, even now also, at that time also, right? See, they started to protect cow, but slowly it started communalizing. So they started something called as Gau Rakshak Samiti. Okay, Gau Raksha Samiti. So it started as for the protection of cows, but slowly started presuming as anti-Muslim and anti-Christian organization. So it created a lot of communal rifts and problems across North India. Even now also that kind of problems are there, okay, related to cow. Now the Gandhi stand in this case is more important because there is a famous line. He said that, I don't think there is any such need. Rather, I request my Muslim and Christian brothers not to slaughter cow. And even if they do so, I cannot kill them because human beings is more important for me than the animals. Okay, that's a version of Gandhi. But now people started killing others for protecting cow and for associated reasons. Okay, so there is no point in discussing too much about it. Everybody know it, right? Now second is Shuddhi movement. Second controversy was Shuddhi movement. So when we discussed about Wahhabi movement also, we discussed about the controversy establishing Islamic rules. So here these two are the controversy, cow protection movement and Shuddhi movement. So the actual meaning is purification, okay. See, there are a lot of conversions happened during this time from Hinduism to Christianity and Islam. So this movement was basically to reconvert those converted people. So there is a purification ceremony which was held, and that's what Shuddhi movement, and that created a lot of issues and that created a lot of communal violences also. So these two are the controversies, and these two actually communalized the Indian society, okay. So cow protection movement and Shuddhi movement, or the Gau Rakshak Samiti and the purification ceremony. Now next point is Dayanand Saraswathi also wrote a book in Hindi, Satyarth Prakash. He died in 1883 in Ajmer, Rajasthan. Okay. Now after the death, the followers of Arya Samaj divided into two groups. Okay. One is moderates and other is not extremist, they are orthodox. These moderates are different, okay. These are those who think more liberal thinking, okay. So you can say within Arya Samaj itself, now there are a section of reformist, okay. So these are a kind of reformist, or they started thinking a bit liberally, but these are very orthodox. So moderates are basically, they are ready to change and they are ready to accept good things from other culture, okay. So on the other side, orthodox, they are rigid in their thoughts, belief and practices, okay. So on one side you can see those who are ready to change, but on the other side, rigid section. Now moderates are led by two famous reformers, very famous personalities, Lala Hansraj and Lala Lajpat Rai. And Lala Lajpat Rai is very famous, okay. Lala Lajpat Rai. In 1887, they founded Dav School at Lahore. Very famous school. Dav means Dayanand Anglo Vedic School. If you remember when we discussed about Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, I told you Mohammedan Anglo Oriental College. So Mohammedan, you leave it, okay. So Mohammedan and Dayanand, okay. So after that, what is coming? Anglo Oriental College. Here, Anglo Vedic School. So Anglo stands for the developments in the West or the Western education. Vedic means at the same time Eastern culture and Indian culture, okay. So it is actually parallel to Mohammedan Anglo Oriental College. So Dayanand Anglo Vedic School started at Lahore. They are ready to accept scientific knowledge of the West. That's why this name itself will tell you, Anglo. At the same time, they are focused on their Vedic education also. So I hope you understood this. Dayanand Anglo Vedic School parallel to Mohammedan Anglo Oriental College, okay. Now it is having branches all over India. Very, very famous school. Now let's discuss about Orthodox. Now what they did, they are led by Swami Shraddhanand, okay. So Swami Shraddhanand. So they totally rejected West and their concept of education. They rejected West and the concept of education. In 1902, in Haridwar, which is in Uttarakhand, they set up a Gurukul. Okay, the idea is basically to establish an institute which is parallel to DAV, Dayanand Anglo Vedic School. So they established a Gurukul, and why the objective is basically to inculcate the Vedic knowledge which they claim to be true. Okay, so for Vedic knowledge. Okay, now you look here. I told you the followers of Dayanand Saraswati was divided into moderates and orthodox. So one side reform, one side orthodox. And reformist started Dayanand Anglo Vedic school, which is parallel to reform movement in Islam, which was Aligarh University or Muhammadan Anglo Oriental College, right? And at the same time, the revivalist section or the orthodox section of Islam, that is Wahhabis, they started Deoband school or Darul Islam for teaching the original Islamic scriptures. Similarly, the orthodox section of Hindus now started a Gurukul, which is parallel to that. You can see Darul Islam, which was started by Wahhabis. So you can see parallels among both Dayanand Anglo Vedic School, Muhammadan Anglo Oriental College. There it was Darul Islam or Darul Ulum. Here it is Gurukul. There the objective was to promote, to give Islamic traditional studies, here the Vedic knowledge. So you can see parallels between Islam versus Hindu, right? See, within Islam also you can see parallel. Muhammadan Anglo Oriental College, as a parallel to it, Wahhabi started Darul Ulum. Now here among Hindus, Dayanand Anglo Vedic school, as a parallel to it, they started Gurukul. Now, when you consider between Hindus and Muslim, Muhammadan Anglo Oriental College parallel is Dayanand Anglo Vedic School, Darul Ulum parallel is Gurukul. I hope this idea is clear for all of you. So basically, Arya Samaj in a nutshell, there are some positives. Okay, they promoted single God concept or formless God concept, and they rejected idol worship. They promoted simple religious ceremonies like simple marriage in temples, etc. At the same time, the most important point which you should not face any confusion is they promoted intercaste marriage. Although they are understood as revivalists, but they promoted intercaste marriage. Okay, and the problems were associated with two controversies, which are cow protection movement or Gau Raksha Samiti and the Shuddhi movement or the purification ceremony, which was held to reconvert those converted people, and that slowly started communalizing the entire northern part of India. Now, Arya Samaj movement, like Wahhabi movement I told you, which is based on an ideology which will never end. Even now it is continued in different parts of India and bringing a lot of reforms in society. Now, if you see some Arya Samajis like Swami Agnivesh, so he worked in the post-independence India to reform the society in the field of child labor, and he freed thousands of child labor from various parts of the country. Okay, so we have completed Swami Dayanand Saraswati and the Arya Samaj. Now, when we discuss about 19th century socio-religious reform movement without discussing Swami Vivekananda, our discussion is not complete. So let's quickly discuss about Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda, 1863 to 1902. So he hardly lived for 40 years, but he made a huge impact in the minds of the young Indians. He was a disciple of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa from Bengal, who was not that well or great educated, and one of his famous quotes is, all religion are true religion, or all religion are true religion. Now, very famous statement by Mahatma Gandhi also you can relate in this context. What he said is, different religions are different routes for the same destination. Okay, so for the same destination. There's a statement or quote by Mahatma Gandhi. Now, Swami Vivekananda, when we discuss his role in history, is basically important for his thoughts and work. Okay, so basically when you discuss about others, we discuss more about their thoughts rather than their work. So Swami Vivekananda, we discuss more about his work because he is a strong or firm believer of karma. In 1893, he participated in the World Religious Conference at Chicago, USA, and that speech was very famous. So he focused on a very balanced life between like spiritual and material life. So there should be a balance between spiritual and material life. That's his idea. See, the problem with the present society, if you see Western society, they went for material life, okay? And when it comes to Indian society, we went maximum for spiritual life. So there should be a balance between both. You need spiritualism at the same time materialism, okay? And that's the idea that Swami Vivekananda propagated. So West went too far for material life, and they are not happy because money alone will not give you happiness, right? At the same time, spiritualism alone will not give you happiness. Happiness is a state of mind, and you need to have a balance between both. So you should avoid the extremes, and there should be a balance, and that's the idea of Swami Vivekananda. And another thing is, he defended the strong points or good points of Hinduism. So generally West have a strong negative perception about Hinduism. They always criticize Hinduism and its practices, right? But he defended the strong points of Hinduism, and for that reason he is considered as a symbol of revivalism by some people. So in that famous speech, he addressed a big audience and he introduced Hinduism. And after the preach, one very famous American journalist wrote that we are fools that we send missionaries to India where people like Swami Vivekananda is living. Okay, and that kind of reporting itself show you the impact that he made in that speech. Another important point is, in 1897, he founded Ramakrishna Mission. Ramakrishna Mission in Belur Math, Bengal. The motto is basically Atmano Moksha Radham Jagad Hidaya, for one's own salvation and for the welfare of the world. Its meaning is for one's own salvation and for the welfare of the world. And the most important point is, he believed in social service and not just social reform. Okay, so unlike other organizations, they focused on social reform, he focused on social service. So for him, it hardly matters that a person believe in one God or multiple God, or he didn't even believe at all, or whether he worship idol or not. This is not that important for him. So for him, what is important is, if a person is hungry, you should give him food. If a person is sick, you should give him medicine. And if a person is illiterate, you should teach him. Okay, so this is the idea that he propagated. And he opened various orphanages, schools, hospitals and widow homes. So if you look at this particular organization, this is very different to the organizations that we have discussed so far. And it is having branches across the world, not in India, okay. Across 34 countries, Ramakrishna Mission is working, including US, UK, Pakistan, etc. Okay, because there is no boundary for human service, right? The mission or the objective is basically to help the poor. So, but the problem is, in India, he was misinterpreted also by many people. He was considered as a symbol of revivalism, as I told you before, because he was a strong follower of Hindutva. And he advocated himself as a Vedantist. He was a strong believer of Hindu Vedanta, and he called himself as Vedantist. And he was proud to be Hindu, and he was proud to be Indian, okay, and he was proud about his culture also. So some people misunderstood or misinterpreted him as a Hindu revivalist, okay. Now, he was very famous for his humanitarian reason, and he criticized Brahminical dominance. He also criticized various evils of Hindu society like untouchability, etc. So let me go for a quick recap of what all things we have done so far. We have started off with socio-religious reform movements of 19th century to address various problems. We have discussed certain general problem and specific problem, right? So we have discussed about general problem and specific problem. As a solution, we have seen religious reform movements. So on one side, we have seen reformist movement, and on the other side, we have seen revivalist movement. And when we discussed about reformist, from Hindu side, I have discussed about Brahmo Samaj, and we have discussed about Raja Ram Mohan Roy in detail. When we discuss about Muslim side, we discussed about Aligarh movement, and we discussed about Sir Syed Ahmad Khan in detail. And when we discussed about revivalist movement, we focused about Hindu movement, and we have discussed about Arya Samaj, right? And we have discussed in detail about Swami Vivekananda. And from the Muslim side, we have discussed about Wahhabi movement. Now, apart from that, we have covered Swami Vivekananda also towards the end. Along with that, we have covered certain other movements like Young Bengal movement by Henry Vivian Derozio, Theosophical Society by Madame Blavatsky, Satyashodhak Samaj by Jyotirao Phule, and Prarthana Samaj by Govind Ranade, etc. Okay, so all those things we have covered. Now I hope any question from socio-religious reform movement, whether in prelims or in mains, or if you're taking sociology optional, will be covered in a much better way.